edition today in PSM TV, and we hope you will enjoy the study today. And our study today is based on the Sabbath inside and outside the Ark of the Covenant. So we're talking about the Sabbath inside the Ark and the Sabbath outside the Ark. So it's very, very important to really understand this, because the Sabbath inside the Ark, as we shall see, is a test which we have been having since 1844, the 3 angels' messages. But there is an aspect of the outside the Ark, which is now a test for those who are living the time of the judgment of the living, which is revealed much more by the angels' messages, is given in the 5 angels' messages. So I'd like to enjoy this subject and pray that through God's help we are encouraged to walk in His paths. So we read in 1888, page 1254, paragraph 1.
After these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power,
right?
And the earth was lightened with His glory.
Yeah, so she is talking about Revelation chapter 18, when we see this angel that comes down to lighten the earth with God's what? Glory. And you would have thought when the earth is lightened with God's glory, no one will not see this truth. Because if something is lightening the whole earth, then everyone should see it. But let's see how it is like. Some souls
who see and receive the light, but those who have stood long in resistance of light,
right?
Because it did not come just in accordance with their ideas, will be in danger of calling light darkness, and darkness light.
Right?
But the power of God will sweep away the refuge of light, and His glory will be revealed.
So you will find that when the angel of Revelations 18 comes, or when these messages come, which we are talking about, only those who have been in an idea of continuing and enjoying the truth will understand. But those who have educated themselves to be those who resist the truth, they will not be able to see the light. Even the light is lightening the earth with God's glory. So that's a mystery. That as the sun is, that the sun is lighting everywhere. Someone will call light, the sun, darkness. How is that possible? But this is what is going to happen if one is educated himself to be in resistance of the truth as God comes. So this becomes therefore an individual matter, which is of very, very critical importance, because you don't really know who has educated himself for what and for what. But if someone has educated himself to resist light, you will call the angel of Revelation chapter 18 darkness. Right? Let
not one ray of light be resisted. Let no operation of the Spirit of God be interpreted as darkness.
Right. So God is very careful. When light comes and the truth comes to you, and you are quick to say, yes, you are quick to say, this is not it. This is satanic, which people say. You are in danger of interpreting the operations of the Spirit as darkness. And once you do that, the Spirit knows that you have called the light darkness. The Spirit does not allow you. Because even if we preach, we cry and do this, who does the work of convicting everyone? It is the Spirit. So the Spirit knows once the person says the light is darkness, you have killed yourself. So be careful of those who call light darkness and do not associate them. But take your time to study the Word of God prayerfully, and God will sweep away the refuge of what? Of lies. Right?
God will not leave His people to wrestle with the principalities and powers, with the rulers of the darkness of this world, with the spiritual wickedness in high places,
right?
Without the cooperation of heavenly angels.
So this is what being taught here. So this is very, very clear, brethren, that as we look into this subject, we really be people who are not calling light what? Darkness. Now, we find that the time in which God provides all these messages on these truths to us, it finds people in a state that is described by Joel, which is Joel 3 verse 14. Let's see what is that state. The prophet Joel looking forward to the day of the Lord.
The prophet Joel, looking forward to the day of the Lord,
right,
makes the following forecast. Multitudes in the valley of disease.
So Joel is seeing that at the time when God brings these messages to us, people are seen in multitude in the valley of what? Decision. Let's see what that means. The marginal variance. This is 5SC 1 to 5, page 3, paragraph 11.
The marginal variants of decision are concision,
Right?
or a cutting off, or threshing, to beat out something from its husk or how.
Right? From these renderings?
From these renderings, we understand, first, that just before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord,
right,
multitudes shall be in a state of deciding either for or against the message of judgment.
Right. So this is what is happening. Just before the great and dreadful day, this is the time in which you are living. In this time, just before the great and dreadful day, what are we told? Multitudes are in the valley of decision. Yeah. What are you deciding? You are deciding either for the message or against the what? Yes, the message. Yes, yeah. So you should be very careful not to follow multitudes at this particular time, because everyone is in the valley of what? Of decision. Those who have educated themselves to call light darkness, they will decide that way to call that light which comes from God darkness, and they will stand on the side of fighting the truth. So God is saying to me and you today, take your time as well in this valley of decision to decide properly in the message of what? Of Elijah, because we are approaching the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Second,
that they shall find themselves confronted with the alternative choices of being threshed,
right,
beat out from the husk or how, as wheat for the garner, or as chaff for the
So there are two things in this time in the valley of decision. It's either you will be taken as a chaff. You know, chaff needs to be thrown away and burnt as fire. Or you will be beaten as what? As wheat, which needs to be put into the what? Into the garner. So the multitudes are in this state at this particular time. As we talk now, among the churches, we are in the state where we are deciding either to be chaff, either to be the what? The wheat. When it shall come to pass?
When it shall come to pass in that day,
right,
that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river and the stream of Egypt,
right,
and you shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel.
So the house of Israel at this particular time is not gathered in groups. But how are they gathered? One by one. What does it mean? It means this message comes to you individually and gives you a chance and a privilege of investigating the message to see whether it is of God. Those who want to lean upon pastors, those who want to lean upon whosoever, they will not make it in this day. Even if we present the truth as it is, it's not for you to say, because so and so has presented it, I must follow it. But your duty and my duty is to understand, what is it a thus says the Lord? Because it's the time to make decision. At this particular time, God is gathering his people one by one. So the house of Israel, as I've indicated, is not gathered in numbers. We talk of the seal of 144,000. We talk of all that. They are not gathered in groups. They are gathered one by one. Why? The message comes to you individually as you are listening to it even on PSM today. This is why it is even now God has provided the channel like PSM TV, where a person you are looking on your own, you are listening on your own, not as a group. And you can't listen as a group now because there is already what? COVID. So you are listening already one by one. And you are being captured as one by one. So this is what God is saying. Yes, you beat off the channel of the river, or it says the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt. Meaning the things that have been blocking the people of God to actually investigate the message one by one in these last days before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, they are beat off. Now, when we talk of COVID, people would have thought we would have gathered to be in groups so that we can look into the subject. Now you can't do that. The Lord has destroyed that aspect of being people sitting together as multitudes and deciding the message as multitudes. What does he want now? He wants people to decide the message as individually. Amen. For the house of Israel is gathered one by one. And if you cannot be gathered one by one, then you are being grouped as what? As chaff. So this is our subject as we enter into today. Then it calls for us to really understand where God is and to follow God as individually. And where do we find God? From the time that Adam fell. From the time that Adam fell up to today, where do we find God? Right? Psalm 77, verse 13.
Verse 13.
Mhm.
Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary.
Right.
Who is so great a God is our God.
So thy way, O God, is where? In the sanctuary. So from the time that Adam fell, even unto today, the way of God is found where? In the sanctuary. So it's our duty to dive into the sanctuary, for this is where we can find who? God. And not only can we find God, this is where we can be at peace with God. For this is where there are things that God have ordained that they enable us to be at peace with what? With God. So thy way, O God, is found where? In the sanctuary. So when Moses is called upon this earth to make up the sanctuary, we are told that he made the sanctuary after the pattern of the sanctuary where? In heaven. Let's hear a little bit about that one. CHIS, page 21, paragraph 2.
In their investigation,
Right?
they learned that the earthly sanctuary built by Moses at the command of God, according to the pattern shown him in the mount, was a figure for the time then present,
Right?
in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices. That its two holy places were patterns of things in heaven.
Right. So the sanctuary that Moses built and everything, we are told here, was the pattern of the sanctuary in heaven. So when God was found in the sanctuary on earth, it was because he is also found in the sanctuary where? In heaven. So the sanctuary in heaven is termed what? The sanctuary in heaven which Jesus ministers.
The sanctuary in heaven,
Right.
in which Jesus ministers in our behalf, is the great original,
Right.
of which the sanctuary built
By
by
Moses was a copy. So we have the great original. Where is the great original? It is where? In heaven. Then what Moses just built was a copy. Meaning Moses only photocopied from what? From the original that is in where? In heaven. So meaning as we follow what Moses photocopied, we are able to follow unto the way of the Lord into the sanctuary. And we can understand our subject, the Sabbath in the sanctuary, in the ark, and the Sabbath on the side of the what? Of the ark. This is what we are going with today as we go. Can you go down where it says the Holy Ghost signifying, right?
The
It's
Holy
Hebrews
Ghost,
chapter 9, verse 8 and 9.
verse 8. The Holy Ghost, this signifying
Right?
that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest,
Right?
while as the first tabernacle was yet standing, which was a figure for the time then present,
Right.
in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices, that could not make him that did the service perfect.
So the
Let's get
sanctuary,
into the questions.
the sanctuary by which Moses built was a figure of the sanctuary now present. This is saying it was the Holy Ghost revealing the details of this one, of this heavenly sanctuary. So we know, and as we shall look unto it, we know that the apostles were looking into the sanctuary in heaven. That's what they tell us. Because Christ entered into the holy place in AD 31 on the day of what? Pentecost. So they were in line. They knew the services of the what? Of the sanctuary, of what was happening in what? In heaven. Remember, we said the sanctuary that Moses built was a copy. And we know that copy ended at when? At the cross. We know that, That copy ended at the what? At the cross when Christ died and the most holy place was laid what? Open. That copy ended on the cross. Then the same things then proceeded to the great original sanctuary, which is where? In heaven. And on the day of Pentecost, AD 31, Christ entered into that what? Into the great original sanctuary where? In heaven. So the apostles or whosoever the Christians who lived at that time, whatever they preached, they were looking unto our author of our finisher, unto the author of our faith, who was where? Who was in the sanctuary.
Amen.
So they were looking into the sanctuary. But there was someone who took their eyes away from where? From the sanctuary. You remember who? Now that's what we want to find out. Remember, because we are saying all along, for them to be in line with Christ, they could only find Christ where? In the sanctuary. So for them to lose Christ, their eyes had to be taken off the sanctuary. So there was a period which we call the period of the falling away, or the period of the dark ages. It's the period which took away the eyes of the people from the heavenly one sanctuary. Therefore, people were not in line and could not find Christ. But whom do they find? Men of sin. who change times and what? And laws. Let's hear the work of the man of sin, which he did. This we will find it in the book 2 Ezra 133, paragraph 2, who says, can you start maybe from the top there, where it says, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,003.
Right. Blessed
That's
is
Daniel
he.
chapter 12, verse 12.
Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,335 days.
Right.
But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days.
Right. So this is the book which we are reading, which is DAR 1909 341. What does it say? It says, this period is doubtlessly given to show the death of taking away of the daily. It is the only one which does this. These two periods, therefore, the 1290 and the 1260 days, terminate together in 1798. One beginning in 538 and the other beginning in 508. Are we together? So what are we finding here? We find that Daniel is saying, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh unto how many years? 1335 what? Yes. And if you read verse 11, it says, from the taking away of the daily sacrifice, there shall be 12 what? 90 what? Days. So we are talking about the timing, because we are saying that the apostolic church were looking into the sanctuary, but there was a period which came which took their eyes away from the sanctuary, and we are being told for how long that period went on, up until we now have a blessing being pronounced. Why is the blessing being pronounced, as we shall see? It's because at that particular time, people now are able to look up, their eyes are back into the sanctuary. Are we going together, brethren? Yes. Because it was a blessing to look into the sanctuary. Not anyone could look into the sanctuary. Only priests could get into the sanctuary and look into the sanctuary. So it means me and you, if our eyes are now able to see into the sanctuary, then we are what now? We are what now? We are in the position of priests and kings. This is why Revelation 1 verse 5 says that his blood has made us priests and kings. Why? Because we now have a privilege to look into the sanctuary. Only the eyes of the priest could look into the sanctuary. So this is how blessed is a period which then emanates after the 1335 what years. Let's hear more about that one. This is 2 SR. I don't know whether you are seeing it. 133 paragraph 2. It will be noticed that there is no blessing.
Right.
Right.
It will be noticed that there is no blessing pronounced at the termination of the 1290 prophetic days.
Right.
But there's a special blessing promised to those who wait till the 1335 days.
Right. You see, when you read Daniel chapter 12, it says there is no blessing for waiting until the 1290. Not 1260, but 1290 years are what? Are finished. There's no blessing. But if you wait until the 1335 years are finished, then there is a peculiar what? Blessing. Now, let's move with prophecy, because we need to really understand where we are and where we are going, right? What happened during the period of the 1290 years, which when we say in that period, there is no blessing. Right? Let's see.
Therefore,
right,
at the end of the 1335 years, the daily, that is Sabbath, was to be restored. And the blessing is to those who shall live from that time on, if they understand and receive the truth.
Do you understand why, brethren, there is the blessing at the end of the 1335 years? Why? Because at the end of the 1335 years, there is the restoral of the day, or the restoral of the Sabbath to the people of what? Of God. So those who then understand the Sabbath and keep the Sabbath, they have this special what? Blessing. If they understand this truth and receive this what? This truth. Let's go ahead. To ascertain the prophetic time.
To ascertain the prophetic time when the 7-day Sabbath daily and the truth sanctuary were trodden underfoot.
Right.
And Sunday observance with its pagan priesthood set up in their stead.
Right.
It would be necessary to subtract 1335 days from 1844.
Right.
Which would point back to 508 AD. In that year, the daily...
Okay. So what are we saying here, brethren? To ascertain when the Sabbath and the sanctuary truth were trodden underfoot. Are we together?
Yes.
And the Sunday observance with its pagan priesthood set up in their state, we simply separate the 1335 years from 1844. Take note of what I said. Where were the eyes of the apostles when Christ left them here on earth? He left them looking into the holy place in the sanctuary. But that continued up until 508. What happened in 508? The truth of the Sabbath and the truth of the sanctuary, which is in heaven, what happened? It was trodden underfoot. So meaning the people who are living in that particular period from 508 moving onward, their eyes are not looking into the heavenly one sanctuary. Therefore, they are not able to see the Sabbath. Neither are they able to understand the truth of the what? Of the sanctuary. So that's what happened in 508. And when you add let's go ahead. So let's go ahead to hear more. In that year, the daily, the Sabbath.
In that year, the daily, that is the Sabbath,
right,
and the sanctuary truths were cast to the ground,
right,
and the abomination, that is Sunday, set up.
So we see in 508 what happened. That's where we have the Sabbath and the sanctuary truths were removed from the church. Meaning the church no longer looked into the holy place. Hence they lost the Sabbath. Hence they lost the sanctuary what? Truth. But what was set in place, they now looked to the men of what? Of sin. How did they look to the men of sin? There was their setting up of what? Of Sunday. As an the Sunday worship, which was set up, and people continued for how many years? In order to understand the truth of the 1290,
in order to understand the truth of the 1290 years, that is days,
right?
Add this figure to 508, which points forward to 1798.
At the time, the 1260 prophetic days of Daniel 7:25. So this is what happened in this period, brethren. I hope it's very, very clear that the eyes of the people from 508, 508 were looking at the men of what? Of sin. Are we together? How? By following his abominations which he has set. So they were, what did they see when they look at the men of sin? Sunday worship. And its festivals, which includes Christmas, which includes what else? Easter, all those festivals which were ordained by the men of what? Of sin. So that's what people were seeing since 508. Up to when? Up to 1798. But still, when the 1290 years terminated in 1798, the eyes of the people were not yet looking into the sanctuary. Are we going together, brethren?
Yes.
So there was a time for us to wait and see the eyes of the people now looking into the sanctuary. The moment where the eyes of the people now look into the sanctuary, what do they see? They will see the Sabbath. When they see the Sabbath and begin to keep the Sabbath, this is when now they have the blessing which is pronounced at the end of 1335. And this is what we want to see happened from 1844. I hope we're moving very, very well. So yes. The sanctuary subject is very, very interesting because we lost it at 508, brought back to us in 1844 at the end of 1335 years. Yes, me and you, those who lived from 1884, God is saying, blessed are those people. Why are they blessed? Because they are looking into the sanctuary. And now as they look into the sanctuary and live the truths of the sanctuary, they find who in the sanctuary? They find Jesus. The fact that they find Jesus is seen by celebrating what Jesus has ordained. While prior to that, whom are they following? They are following the men of sin, and you are following what the men of sin is what? Is ordained prior to 1844 from 508. So this is then what is important to see what then happened in 1844. So we want us to go to this book, Bible Echo, September 9, 1895, paragraph 13, the vision of Isaiah.
The vision of Isaiah represents the position of God's people in the last days.
Right.
When they are privileged to see by faith the work going on in the sanctuary.
I don't know if you read about that vision of Isaiah. It was a blessed vision of Isaiah chapter 6. When Isaiah suddenly he saw the gate, the opening into the most holy place, and he beheld God. And he said that was an honor for Isaiah to do. That is the very honor that the people of God are having by faith as we look into the sanctuary since 1844 in these last days, right? Jesus is seated.
Jesus is seated with his Father on the throne,
right,
high and uplifted, and all who come to God through him will find access into the inner sanctuary.
Right. So this is it. When in 1844, me and you live in a time when we have access into the inner sanctuary, not just any part, but the inner part of the of the sanctuary. But looking into the inner part of the sanctuary comes along with the test. You don't just look into the innermost sanctuary and enjoy, but there comes test in reference to that. Because we saw that when people have the Sabbath being removed, they had a test in which then they were following the manner of what? Of sin. But what about when we look into the sanctuary, what test was to be brought? Let's hear whether it is so. GC 424 paragraph 4. But the people of God.
But the people were not yet ready to meet their Lord.
In 1844, when people thought they were ready to meet their Lord, this inspiration says they were not yet ready to meet their Lord.
There was still a work of preparation to be accomplished for them.
Right.
Light was to be given, directing their minds to the temple of God in heaven.
In heaven, right?
And as they should by faith follow their high priest in his ministration there,
right? New duties will be revealed. So this is what happens in 1844. As you look into the sanctuary, look closer into the sanctuary, what is happening? New duties are revealed. Right? So let's hear the new duties that were revealed in 1844. When they looked into the into the sanctuary, right? The Lord gave me L writings page 32.
The Lord gave me the following view in 1847.
Right?
While the brethren were assembled on the Sabbath at Topsham, Maine, we felt an unusual spirit of prayer.
Right?
And as we prayed, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost fell upon us. We were very happy. Soon I was lost earthly things and was wrapped in a vision of God's glory.
Right.
I saw an angel flying swiftly to me. He quickly carried me from the earth to the holy city.
Right.
In the city I saw a temple, which I entered.
Right.
I passed through a door before I came to the first veil. This veil was raised,
right,
and I passed into the holy place. This veil was raised,
right,
and I passed into the holy place.
Right.
Here I saw the altar of incense, the candlestick with 7 lamps, the table on which was the shewbread.
Right.
After viewing the glory of the wall, Jesus raised the second veil,
and I passed into the Holy of Holies. So do you see where she is coming from? First, she comes into the temple and sees the outer part of the temple and enters into the holy place, and he sees what Moses put in the holy place, which he was copying. What does he see? The table of shewbread, and what else? And the altar of what? Of incense, and the candlestick, with 7 lamps. Then Jesus, what happened? Then opened again, that allowing her to enter into the Holy of Holies. So when she passed into the Holy of Holies in 1844, in this vision, what was inside, brethren? We want to find out what was inside, because what was inside is what Moses put there. Let's hear what Moses put in the most holy place inside in the ark. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 1 to 3.
At that time, the Lord said unto me,
right,
hew 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount,
right,
and make thee an ark of wood. And I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables,
right,
which thou breakest, and thou shalt put them in the ark.
Right.
And I made an ark of shittim wood, and hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first,
right,
and went up into the mount,
right,
having the 2 tables in my hand.
So we see that Moses was plainly told that first you broke those tables of stones, Moses. So you need to make up another set of tables of stone, and he made it. And after God wrote on those stones, he said you must put them where? In the ark. Where is the ark? We know the ark was in the most holy place. So when Ellen White is given a vision of entering into the most holy place, what will she see? she should see the law of God inside. Because that's where it resides, in the most holy place, inside the what? The ark. Let's see whether he did see this. Let's go down where it says, do you see where it says, early writings, page 32, it says, in the holiest I saw an ark. Right, go ahead.
In the holiest I saw an ark. On the top and sides of it was purest gold.
Right.
On each end of the ark was a lovely cherub with its wings spread out over it.
So the first thing that she beheld in the most holy place was the what? The ark. And she beheld the cherubims which Moses made, but which are now in heaven from the original.
Their faces were turned toward each other,
right?
And they looked downward. Between the angels was a golden censer. Above the ark, where the angels stood, was an exceeding bright glory that appeared like the throne where God dwelt. So
above the ark, there was the throne of what? Of God, which accordingly Moses had put as Moses' what? Seat. So we now see, and what did she see then? After seeing the ark, we now want to see what did she see inside the ark, because we have seen that Moses put inside the ark. What did he put? According to the copy which he was making, he put the law of God. Let's hear in the ark.
In the ark.
Yes, that's L writing page 32, paragraph 3. In the ark.
In the ark was the golden pot of manna, Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of stone which folded together like a book.
So, brethren, whatever Moses did in the Old Testament, wrote down and put in the ark was as it is. What was there? There was the Aaron's rod that what budded. Take note of that. And even the golden pot of manna. And 2 tables of what? Of stone, just as Moses placed them when he was told. So when Moses was putting golden pot of manna in heaven, there was also a golden pot of what? Of manna. When Moses was putting the Aaron's rod in heaven, also there is an Aaron's rod that budded. Yeah? How honored is that? When he put the tables of stone in heaven, also there is the tables of what? Of stone. So this is what we saw since 1844. Ellen White is seeing in 1844. But when she saw this, let's go ahead. What did she say? The tables of stone. On one table.
On one table were 4.
Right.
On the other 6. The 4 on the first table shone brighter than the other 6.
So what she saw, the first 4 shone brighter than the first 6. Let's go ahead.
But the fourth, the Sabbath commandment, shone above them all. For the Sabbath was set apart to be kept in honor of God's holy name.
Right.
The whole Sabbath looked glorious. The halo of glory was all around.
So when she beheld into the sanctuary, God highlighted by his glory the Sabbath. Take note, why did God highlight the Sabbath? Remember I was saying when they look into the sanctuary, new duties were to what? To arise. So God is highlighting the Sabbath here. Let's see why did God highlight the Sabbath. Can you go on top with writing page 254, paragraph 2? It says, after Jesus opened the door of the most holy place.
After Jesus opened the door of the most holy, the light of the Sabbath was seen.
Do you see when the light of the Sabbath was seen? When he opened the door into the most holy place.
And the people of God were tested.
Right.
As the children of Israel were tested anciently to see if they would keep God's law.
Do you see that? So since October 22, 1844, Jesus opened into the most holy place. And what was inside? It is the law of God. But mainly what was highlighted by God. Because the Sabbath. Why? Because the 7th-day Sabbath, then people have not been keeping it all along. Since the man of sin removed it, people have not been keeping it. They're keeping Sunday, keeping all this and that. So God is now highlighting the 7th-day Sabbath, showing that it is the time for testing the people of God. Can you go down and say, I saw them looking as by faith they enter into the most holy place. As they by faith enter.
Okay. As they by faith enter the most holy, they find Jesus, and hope and joy spring up anew.
Right. So I saw the third angel pointing upward, showing the disappointed was to the way to the holiest of the heavenly sanctuary. So you may ask, what is the message of the third angel's message? It is to show those people or everyone into the holiest of all. And what does it show in the holiest of all? The law of God. Let's go ahead. I saw them looking backward.
I saw them looking back, reviewing the past from the proclamation of the second advent of Jesus,
Right.
down through their experience, the passing of the time in 1844.
Right.
They see their disappointment explained, and joy and certainty again animated.
Animated. That's wonderful. This is what happened in 1844. Let's hear even, because this happened in 1844. There were other issues. People who lived before 1844, people like Miller, people like Wesley, people like Luther, those people who had done wonderful things. So the people were saying, those people died as holy people, but you are saying since 1844, we are being tested on the Sabbath. So we want to hear Ellen White to address this, because this is a problem which we even have in our days, where people look back and say, our pioneers or our elders did not keep this. So you can't say it's a test now. We do what our elders did. We don't go along with it. So Ellen White had to address this as a temptation that was coming from the devil. Ellen Writings, page 42, paragraph 3. I saw that the present test.
42, paragraph 3.
Yes.
Okay. I saw that the present test on the Sabbath would not come until the mediation of Christ in the holy place was finished.
Right.
And he had passed within the second veil. Therefore, Christians who fell asleep before the door was opened into the most holy, when the mid-cry was finished, at the 7th month, 1844,
right,
and who had not kept the truth Sabbath, now rest in hope, for they had not this light and the test of the Sabbath, which we now have since that door was opened.
So since 22 October 1844, we looked into the most holy place, new duties began. Heaven counted it. Anyone who is living after 20 October 1844 should be able to keep the Sabbath, because we are in sight of seeing the day of the Sabbath. But those who died before, they don't have that test. So some people can't distinguish between this period, the period before 1844, the period after 1844, when the eyes of the servants of God looked into the ark and behold the law of what? Of God. What does it say? Because
I saw that Satan was tempting some of God's people on this point.
So on this point, God's people are tempted, not only then, but even today. How are they tempted? Because
so many good Christians have fallen asleep in the triumphs of faith and have not kept the true Sabbath.
Right?
They were doubting about it being a test for us now.
So this is what it is, brethren. Do not be taken by the devil. When light comes, which our pioneers did not have, don't waste your time and say, did our pioneers keep this? No, the truth is progressive.
Amen.
Those who are saying our pioneers are William Miller, did William Miller keep the Sabbath, but he proclaimed the truth, or did this one? They lost it in 1844. October 1844, new duties were now supposed to arise. The third angel was pointing people into the most holy place. So the third angel brought about the effect of the law. What point was revealed by the third angel's message, which was very critical at that point? L. Writings, page 33, paragraph 2, 32, paragraph 3.
The holy Sabbath looked glorious. A halo of glory was all around it. I saw that the Sabbath commandment was not nailed to the cross.
Right.
If it was, the other 9 commandments were.
Yeah.
And we are at liberty to break them all.
So this is why God highlighted the 4th commandment. Because other people, all these the churches, they were believing in keeping the 9 commandments, but refusing the Sabbath. So God had to highlight it in the most holy place to indicate that if you are seeing the Sabbath in the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary, it's an indication that heaven has not changed. If heaven has changed, then the thing also should have been changed, the heavenly sanctuary. Right? I saw that God
had not changed the Sabbath.
Yeah.
For he never changes.
For he never changes.
Amen.
So this is what was revealed. But
the Pope had changed it from the 7th to the first day of the week.
Right.
For he was to change times.
So and it was made clear that the man of sin was to change times and laws, as we have indicated from 508, and the man of sin changed and removed the Sabbath and removed the sanctuary word truth. So the Sabbath and the sanctuary go hand in hand. Why? Because the Sabbath is right inside the sanctuary in the most holy place. So this is what was revealed clearly, that there was a change not only of the Sabbath, but of times and laws. Right? I saw that if God had changed.
I saw that if God had changed the Sabbath from the 7th to the first day, he would have changed the writing of the Sabbath commandment.
Right?
Written on the tables of stone, which are now in the ark in the most holy place of the temple in heaven, and it would read thus.
Right?
The first day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
So the Lord never changes. When the man of sin was thinking to change times and laws, he could not change what Moses wrote. And therefore the copy in heaven, the great original in heaven, still say the 7th day of the week is the Sabbath of the Lord. And we must keep it. Now, having thus shown, we have seen that the third angel, what the third angel revealed, what was inside was the law of the 10 commandments. So the pioneers in this particular time, they thought that the third angel's message was the final everything. What the third angel's message saw inside the ark, that's the only thing that should be kept. So they were narrowed to think that they narrowed their views and said, what we have to keep is only that which is in the ark. The 10 commandments. So there was an argument about these things among the pioneers of the Advent people. What was the argument? The argument, let's hear one of the arguments. The arguments that was there is this one. Let's hear. This is March 6, 1862. Right? Can you go down? I want you to start where it says, with the citing. Maybe let's start from where it says 1 PIO. 1 PIO 395 paragraph 389 paragraph 5. 1 PIO 389 paragraph 5. With the citing of the New Testament.
With the citing of the New Testament support, a scriptural framework was assembled for the projected procedures.
Right. And
it was suggested that we gather from this fact some instruction relative to our own duty.
Right. So remember, the duty that has been revealed to the Advent people since 1844 is what? The 10 commandments that are in the ark. But the other things which they needed to have, but the question was asked, where is the authority of keeping these things? So the argument was, no, they should be in the ark. But when you look inside in the ark of the 10 commandments, you only see the 10 commandments. What do you see? Let's hear more about that one. The
pioneers of the Seventh-day Church could have gone more easily to the Old Testament.
Right.
And brought in the obligation of the tithe.
Right.
But at this juncture, regardless of the attractiveness of the tithe, they were not sure that it was not one of those ceremonial obligations that is at the cross.
So this was the argument which they were now having. Gentlemen, we need tithe, we need offerings. But where is the authority of these things? Okay, we can't go and take into the Old Testament because the light that we have only seen is inside the ark. Inside the ark of the 10 commandments, there was no tithes, there were no offering. So how do you account for these tithes and offerings? So this was a problem with the pioneers. They were startled as to how to solve this thing. In the occasion,
in the occasional mention of organization, they were looking to the New Testament, its 7 deacons,
right?
Not to the Old Testament, with the appointment by Moses of the 7th.
So they thought, no, we should look into the New Testament for our subject, so that we cannot say it comes from where? From the Old Testament, not inside the ark. So they were saying, you remember, Paul did this. But when you read in the New Testament, you don't find where it's written tithes and offering. You only hear about bringing their offerings. But that was now a problem with them. Let's go ahead.
In finance, they were looking to the New Testament,
right?
And Paul's counsel in 1 Corinthians 16 verse 2, that upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store as God hath prospered him.
Right.
Rather than to Malachi's direction, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house.
So do you see the problem, brethren? It was a real problem for pioneers. They couldn't solve this Shall we look into the sanctuary? If we look into the sanctuary, what God has only revealed through the third angel's message is the 10 commandments. But the 10 commandments do not have tithes and offering. Not only tithes and offering was a problem. They thought of the Lord's Supper. What do we do with the Lord's Supper? It's not there in the what? In the what? In the sanctuary, inside the Ark of the what? Of the Covenant, on the 10 commandments. There were so many things which were involved therein. So they argued and say, how shall we take our stand? So this was a problem, a serious problem, which many people, even Advent people today, don't think about it, that is a problem. Because if you say, we since 1844, we're looking into the sanctuary and we saw only the Sabbath and the 10 commandments. We ask you, where is your authority of removing tithes and what? And offering. Where is your authority of celebrating Lord's Supper? Where is your authority of putting up many things that we have? Because you should only follow what is on the 10 commandments inside the ark. So what a problem was brought before the pioneers. They considered that tithing system.
They considered that tithing system was a good plan, and it did have a strong bearing on the conclusions reached and set before the church.
Right.
Here is the argument set forth in the address. As Paul wrote by inspiration of the Holy Spirit,
right,
we may rest assured that his suggestions were not only safe to follow and calculated to ensure success, but also that they were in exact accordance with the will of God.
So this is what happened, brethren. They were not able to quote the Old Testament. Because they were saying we're looking into the sanctuary inside the ark. So thus they then talked about the issue of tithes. But let's see to understand where is the tithes and offering. Is it on the 10th commandment? Let's see where it is. May 6, 1862.
1862.
On top one says they that of the sons of Levi.
Okay. They that are of the sons of Levi, who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law.
Right.
But it is impossible to take tithes of the people according to the 10 commandments, for they do not regulate the taking of tithes.
Take that statement again.
They that are of the sons of Levi,
right,
who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law.
That's how it was, and they that of the Levitical, they had a commandment to take tithes from the people. But which law were they using?
But it is impossible to take tithes of the people according to the 10 commandments.
Yeah.
For they do not regulate the taking of tithes.
Yeah. Do you see this?
Amen.
So it's very, very clear. So this is why the pioneers were having confusion. How shall we consider this subject? Because when you look into the sanctuary and see the 10 commandments, we don't see a regulation saying take tithes using the 10 commandments. If you can give us, we are willing to hear that one. So you can't have that one. So the ceremonial law.
The ceremonial law. The ceremonial law does command the sons of Levi to take tithes.
Do you take note which commandment allow people to take tithes? The ceremonial law. So the pioneers were clear about this.
Yes.
Brethren, if we are now taking tithes, then we are following the ceremonial law. Because we cannot say we are following the 10 commandments. For the 10 commandments does not regulate that we take what? Tithes and offerings.
Amen.
So they were in this dilemma. So there was now a need for inspiration to come in so that this subject can be what? Cleared. Let's hear what inspiration came in and said. In 1888, 217 paragraph 3. 1888, 217 paragraph 3.
217 paragraph 3.
Right.
Third angel's message.
Third angel's message.
The third angel's message is the proclamation of the 10 commandments and the faith of Jesus Christ.
Take note, the third angel's message is a proclamation of the what?
The commandments.
Commandments. Where are the commandments? The commandments are in the sanctuary, inside the what? The ark, the 10 commandments. But it doesn't end there, the third angel's message. What else does it proclaim? The faith of what?
Jesus Christ.
Of Jesus.
Yes.
The commandments of God have been proclaimed, But the faith of Jesus Christ has not been proclaimed by the Seventh-day Adventists as of equal importance.
Right.
The law and the gospel going hand in hand. I cannot find a language to express this subject in its fullness.
So, Ellen White perceived that there is a problem. People have stood on proclaiming the third angel's message as only proclaiming the 10 commandments. And they did not take note that the same third angel's message has to do with the faith of Jesus. So if it has to do with the faith of Jesus, where is the faith of Jesus? In the sanctuary. Because we are saying the third angel's message does not point people outside the sanctuary, but points them in the sanctuary. So in the sanctuary, we see the 10 commandments. But where is the faith of what? Jesus Christ. So she saw that the pioneers and the rest were not willing to proclaim the faith of what? Of Jesus. And he's saying, I can't find light to proclaim this subject. Now, go ahead. The faith of Jesus.
The faith of Jesus, it is talked of,
right?
But not understood.
Exactly. So when you understand the faith of Jesus, then you see that this is where the rest of other things are entering inside. Because the third angel's message doesn't look anywhere, but it looks in the sanctuary. So anything of our basis must come where? In the sanctuary. So when you say we keep the 10 commandments and the faith of Jesus, where is the faith of Jesus? It is in the sanctuary. It should be in the sanctuary. But where in the sanctuary? This is where Ellen White is making it clear that people talk about this, but they have not really understood it. Right?
What?
Okay. We shall take it as time goes on. Now, then she had to say this to the people. Because people were now saying, as you have seen, they were saying, we can't quote the Old Testament because we can only take the 10 commandments only. But she's saying, no. The faith of Jesus does not proceed from the ark. Doesn't come from inside the ark. It comes somewhere else. You have not understood the faith of Jesus. If you have understood the faith of Jesus, you will know that in the most holy place, there is somewhere where the faith of Jesus comes. Yes. Not inside the 10 commandments. Now, let's hear, she had to write this now to the people, addressing them. This is a Review and Herald, February 25, 1901, paragraph 6. This day, the Lord,
the Lord thy God hath commanded thee to do these statutes and judgments.
Right.
Thou shalt therefore keep and do them with all the heart and with all your soul.
Right.
Thou hast avowed the Lord this day to be thy God, and to walk in his ways,
right,
and to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments, and to hearken unto his word.
So do you see how many things she wrote? Moses wrote to keep what? His commandments, his statutes, his judgments, and hearken unto his voice. The voice of the Lord we know is the testimony, because we are talking about the prophets. So this is what Ellen White is talking about. This is what they were talking about then. This is not the voice of man.
This is not the voice of man. It is the voice of Christ from the infolding pillar of the cloud.
So this is what Ellen White is saying. Who said you should keep commandments, statutes, judgments, and testimonies? It's not the voice of man, but it is the voice of who? Of Christ. Let's go ahead.
Read carefully. Of Deuteronomy 26.
Listen it clearly, brethren. Read what? Carefully. What? Deuteronomy chapter 26. Also chapter 27. And also chapter 28.
For here are stated plainly the blessings of obedience.
Right? Remember those brethren, the fellows were not willing to quote this, and they were saying we can't quote anything outside the what? Outside the ark. We need to quote in the ark. And Ellen White says, read carefully those words. Let's see what he says. These directions which the Lord gave to his people express the principles of the law of the kingdom of God. Right. And they are made specific so that the minds of people may not be left in ignorance and uncertainty. So when you talk about the kingdom of God, it has its laws. What are its laws? They are stated in Deuteronomy 26, chapter 27, chapter what? 28. Very, very clear. So you don't just say, hey, we're the people who caught inside what happened in the ark. Ellen White is saying, look at chapters 26, chapter 27, chapter 28. For this is what? The law of the kingdom.
Amen.
Now, let's hear what she further says. These scriptures
present the never-ceasing obligation
Yeah.
or whom God has blessed with life and health and advantages.
I thought you would say amen. Do you see what he's saying? These scriptures present a never-ceasing obligation of all whom God has blessed with light, health, advantages in temporal and spiritual what?
Things.
Do you follow that?
Yes.
So she was clear to the pioneer and said, gentlemen, beside the 10 commandments which you are talking about, there is a never-ceasing obligation. As long as you have got health, as long as you have got life. Chapter 27, Deuteronomy, chapter 27, 28, 20, up to 28 is still binding upon me and you.
Amen.
Very clear. Let's hear God's claims. Quiet. The message.
The message has not grown weak because of age.
Brethren, those who think that these laws ended at the cross, they should think wise. Because we are being told that these have not grown weak because of age. God's claims
are just as binding now.
Are just as binding when, brethren, now.
Just as fresh in
just
their
as
importance.
Fresh as importance.
As God's gifts are fresh and continual.
This is what she put forward. Because people were now misinterpreting the third angel's message. And they're saying the third angel's message is only looking inside the Ark of the Covenant. Anything outside, no, it's not. She's saying, no. We are missing it. Because the third angel's message, yes, the 10 commandments. And again, it has the faith of Jesus. Where the faith of Jesus is involved in these chapters 27, chapter 28, up to until chapter 28. And she's saying this is binding. Yes, she could say in 1 TT 109, God is now
testing and proving his people. Character is being developed.
Right.
Angels are weighing moral worth and keeping a faithful record of all the acts of the children of men.
Right.
Among God's professed people are corrupt hearts, but they will be tested and proved. That God who reads the hearts of everyone will bring to light hidden things of darkness, where they are often least suspected. That stumbling blocks which have hindered the progress of truth may be removed. And God have a clean people and hold people
to declare his statutes and judgments. Not to declare the 10 commandments, no. But to declare the what? The statutes and judgments. Because this is the aspect that is not preached in the Adventism, among us Advent believers. Why? Because people talk of the 10 commandments. They neglect the faith of Jesus. Why? This was the argument in pioneers. So she further wrote in those same years, because this argument was very hot. She further wrote in those years, and what did she say? 1 PC 1104.6. In consequence
of continual transgression,
right?
The moral law was repeated in awful grandeur from Sinai.
So the moral law is the one that is in the Ark of the Covenant. She is saying this was repeated to Moses because of continual transgression. Let's go ahead.
Christ gave to Moses religious precepts which were to govern every day.
So she is saying further, Christ gave to Moses religious precepts which were to govern what? Everyday life. So in addition to the 10 commandments, what did Christ do? He gave religious precepts which were to govern everyday what? Life.
These statutes were explicitly given to guard the 10 commandments. They were not shadowy types to pass away with the death of Christ.
So she is clear that, brethren, don't just look inside the ark. There is something else that God gave to Moses, which is binding as long as time should what? Should last. Go ahead.
They were to be binding upon men in every age, as long as time should last.
The terminology is the same. This message has not grown weak because of age. God's claims are just binding now, just as fresh in their importance as gifts are fresh and continuously. And this is Deuteronomy chapter 26, chapter 27, chapter 28, which are not in the ark. They are not in the ark. Don't deceive yourself. They are not in the ark. So she is saying these things are binding upon us as long as time should last. Let's go ahead.
These commands
Right.
were enforced by the power of the moral law, and they clearly and definitely explain that law.
So she was clear that the law that you see inside the ark, yes, its other friends which are depending upon it. What are the other friends? Those religious precepts which are found in Deuteronomy 26, 27, 28. They are still binding upon men as long as time should last.
Amen.
So she corrected this idea of the brethren of saying, how do we consider tithe? She said, yes, we consider tithe. How do we consider tithe? It's outside the ark. And it enters into that aspect of the ceremonial aspect. She was clear. Because she corrected this, then there was an inquiry. People then inquired. You, Ellen White, you only saw what? The 10 Commandments. But you talk of the faith of Jesus Christ. Because when you read of Ellen White, she doesn't say, I saw the faith of Jesus Christ. Is there anywhere she says that? No. What did she saw? She saw the 10 Commandments. And because you saw the 10 Commandments, people say, that's what you said, you told us you saw when you went out into the what? Into the sanctuary. How come now we are saying there are other laws that are still binding when we did not see you talking about them? Or you did not say that you saw them in the sanctuary. So they asked here, how shall we consider this? What did they ask?
187.
Yes.
401.
Yes.
The question has been asked me, do you think that the Lord has any more light for us as a people?
Because these people, he had thought that the 10 Commandments revealed by the third angel's message, that's everything. Now they hear Ellen White saying, no, that's not everything. There is still small, which is not in the ark. Now they say, Ellen White, then, do you think the Lord has more light to us as the people of what? Of God. What does he say?
I answer.
Right?
That he has light that is new to us.
So I answer. Let's go with me, brethren. I answer. Ellen White is here on the third angel's message. He has light that is new to what? To us. What is the further light that was new to the Advent people? It is the light of these 2 additional angels' messages. She continues, we have
only the glimmerings of the rays of the light.
She is saying what we are only having are just glimmerings of what these additional ones will bring. We are not
making the most of the light which the Lord has already given us. And thus, we fail to receive the increased light.
Right.
We do not walk in light or red shade upon us.
Right. So, go on.
We call ourselves commandment keeping people.
We call ourselves what? Commandment what? Keeping people. Keeping the moral what? Law only. Let's go ahead.
But we do not comprehend the exceeding breadth of the far-reaching principles of the law of God.
So, but what is the problem? When you talk of the 10 Commandments, you talk of the 10 Commandments referring to only those that are in the ark. But you don't understand that the 10 Commandments are far greater than just what was put in the ark. The far-reaching principles of the law of what? Of God.
We do not understand its sacred character.
Right?
Men whom claim to be...
So this is what Ellen White is saying. More light that is to come to the people of God doesn't come doing anything new or anything wondrous. No. It shows us the depth of the 10 Commandments that are in the ark.
Yes.
How is that depth like? Let's go down. Can go down to this ill writings, page 42, paragraph 1.
Then I was shown that the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ relating to the shut door could not be separated.
Do you hear that, brethren? So she is saying now, for you and me to understand this depth, especially the faith of Jesus Christ, which cannot be understood. The 10 Commandments, which she saw in the most holy place, cannot be separated from when? From the faith of Jesus Christ. Are we together? Maybe take it again so that we can hear it.
Then I was shown that the commandments of God,
right,
and this testimony of Jesus Christ relating to the shut door would not be separated.
Right.
and that the time for the commandments of God to shine out with all their importance, and for God's people to try it on the Sabbath truth, was when the door was opened in the most holy place.
So when the door was opened into the most holy place, two inseparable things were supposed to come forth. But first, what was first revealed? The 10 what? Commandments. But the depth of the 10 commandments is involved in the faith of what? Jesus Christ. So what other laws are in the most holy place? That's the question which we have. Because Ellen White is not seeing in the holy place, no. Neither is he seeing in the outer court, no. She is seeing in the most holy place, and she is making such statements that they are laws that are binding other than just the 10 commandments. Which laws are inside the ark? Let's hear that one. That is Deuteronomy 31, verse 25 and to 27.
That Moses commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of God, saying, take this book of the law,
right,
and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God,
right,
that it may be there for a witness at
So when you go into the holy place, what are you going to see? What are you going to see? You see the 10 commandments inside the ark. But on the side of the ark, what do you see? The book of the law, which Moses put, which is the book of what? Deuteronomy. That very book which we have seen him talking about and saying, when I was saying chapter 27, chapter 20, they are still binding. So that is also in the most holy place. So when you say, no, we look into the most holy place ourselves, then you can't see this book of the law. Then we say, you have not looked properly. Because what should you see there? The book of the what? Of the law. Let's go ahead.
For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold,
right?
While I am yet alive with you this day, ye have been rebellious against God.
Right?
And how much more after my death?
That's what Moses said. So let's see what was contained in the book that Moses wrote and put in the most holy place on the side of the ark. Moses completed the work. EP 330.
Moses completed the work of writing all the laws, statutes, and judgments which God had given him, and regulations concerning the sacrificial system.
So take note, brethren. What is there? What is in this book? Please take it again. Moses
completed the work of writing all the laws, statutes.
So what we have laws. We have what? Statutes. We have what? Judgments and
regulations
concerning the sacrificial system. Don't confuse these things. You hear people saying statutes are sacrifices. This is confuse themselves. The book that Moses put on the side of the ark, which is in the most holy place, yes, separate laws like this, regulations of concerning the ceremonial system on their own, Are we together? You have the statutes on their own, you have the judgments on their own, and you have the laws, which are testimonies, on their own, brethren. So 4 laws are contained in the book that is in the most holy place on the side of the ark. Amen. Right? 1 SP 334, paragraph 1.
Moses instructed.
Yes, Moses instructed.
Moses instructed the children of Israel in an earnest, impressive manner. He knew that it was his last opportunity to address them.
Right.
He then finished writing in a book all the laws, judgments, and statutes.
Do you take note, brethren?
Which God had given him.
And also various regulations respecting the ceremonial offerings. So inside that law, which is on the side of the ark, they are not only, as people have thought, they are sacrifices. No. They are statutes, they are judgments, they are laws, and they are regulations respecting the ceremonial sacrifices. He placed the book in the hands of... Go ahead.
He placed the book in the hands of men in the sacred office.
Right.
And requested that
for safekeeping,
it should be put
inside the ark. It should be put where? In the side of the ark. For God's care was continually upon that chest. Do you take note? God's care is was upon the what? The ark, where there was a 10 commandments. Right on the side of the Ark of the Covenant, these things are inseparable. They go hand in hand. There was this law containing these 4 laws. Right? Go ahead.
This book of Moses was to be preserved.
Right?
That the judges of Israel might refer to it in case should come up to make it necessary.
Right?
And erring people often understand God's requirements to suit their own case. Therefore, the book of Moses was preserved
in the most sacred place for future reference. Even today is there for future reference. So this is why Ellen White said, brethren, you have only been looking inside the ark, but there is something on the side of the what? Of the ark, which is still binding upon us as long as time should what? Should last. Now, let's move on to hear what she said. This book is the one which was used by Josiah in this work. 2 BC 1038. 2 BC 1038.
2 BC 1038. Josiah had read.
Yes.
Josiah had read to priests and people the book of the law found in the side of the ark in the house of God.
So for future reference, as we have indicated, we have who? I've skipped Joshua. Joshua also had something about that. But I've just moved on to Josiah. You see, when Josiah made such terrible reform, which book enabled him to do that? Don't say it was the 10 Commandments. No. It was in the book on the side of the ark, which contained the statutes, the judgments, the testimonies, as well as the sacrificial regulations. Now, let's move on. His sensitive conscience.
His sensitive conscience was deeply stirred as he saw how far the people had departed from the requirements of the covenant they had made with God.
Right?
He saw that they were indulging appetite to a fearful extent and perverting their senses by the use of wine. Men in sacred offices were frequently incapacitated for the duties of their positions because of their indulgence in wine.
Right. So, we have made it very, very clear, brethren, what is involved in looking into the sanctuary. The mistake also which the pioneers were now having. They thought only what was in the sanctuary is the 10 what? Commandments. Ellen White corrected it there and there and said, no. It's not the 10 Commandments. There is a book which contains the statutes, the judgments. And she said, what those statutes and judgments have, that those things are still binding and as fresh as when they were given even today. So Ellen White was so very clear to tell us, because remember the argument of the pioneers. Why did they not take up tithe? Why did they not take up tithe? Let me take you what it says. The pioneers of the Seventh-day Church could have gone more easily to the Old Testament and brought in the obligation of tithe. But at this juncture, regardless of the attractiveness of the tithe, they were not sure that it was not one of those ceremonial obligations that ceased at the cross. So what was their problem? They were not sure what ceased at the what? At the cross. Are we together? We have seen the 10 Commandments were there. Statutes are there.
Yes.
Judgments are there. Testimonies are there. And the ceremonial sacrificial regulations are there. So which ones ceased at the what? At the cross. And then I had to tell them so that things come up clear. Let's see what she says in that book which follows from there, which is this book. Let me, I'm sure you are seeing it, where you're reading. It's SR 149, paragraph 2 and paragraph 3.
Yes.
The Lord instructed.
The Lord instructed Moses definitely in regard to ceremonial sacrifices, which were to cease at the death of Christ.
Don't you have confusion to tell you statutes are ceremonial sacrifices? This one is that. No. Ellen White is saying of the 4 laws that were in the sides of the ark, what ended on the cross? What ended on the cross? The ceremonial sacrifices, but not the statutes, but not the judgments, but not the testimonies. These are as fresh as when they were given. Let's see.
The system of sacrifices foreshadowed the offering of Christ as a lamb without blemish.
Right.
The Lord first established the system of sacrificial offerings with Adam after his fall, which he taught to his descendants.
So, which he taught to his what? Descendants. So, this system of sacrificial offerings is what foreshadowed the death of Christ. That's what ended on the cross.
Yeah.
Not the testimonies, not the statutes. This is why she had to write that these other laws that were given to God the temple were binding upon men as long as time should last. And she is now saying the third angel, when it comes, it is inseparable. Meaning the third angel must reveal the commandments of God and does also reveal the statute. And if people had understood what it means, the faith of Jesus Christ, which was the next aspect, they would understand the aspect of the statutes, the judgments, and the testimonies, which are part of the third angel's message. For these things are inseparable. Right. So this is then important, as we have shown it very clearly what was nailed at the cross. But we saw that Ellen White said more light was to come, but it has to do with the 10 Commandments. As we have seen that the 10 Commandments and the faith of Jesus are inseparable. We want to see why the 10 Commandments and the book that was put on the side of the ark are inseparable. We want to find out that. PP, page 310. The minds of the people.
The minds of the people, blinded and debased by slavery and heathenism,
right,
were not prepared to appreciate fully the far-reaching principles of God's 10 precepts.
So when people were given the 10 commandments, they did not understand, just like it happened in 1844. People were coming out from the deep dark ages. So they could not understand the depth of the law of God. So God in his mercy only revealed the 10 commandments that are inside the ark and left the other section. Let's go ahead.
That the obligations of the Decalogue might be more fully understood and enforced.
Right.
Additional precepts were given,
illustrating and applying the principles of the 10 Commandments. So the laws that we talk about that are now outside the ark, what are they doing? They are illustrating and applying the principles of the 10 Commandments. Otherwise, the 10 Commandments, its far-reaching principles, extends to those which are on the side of the what? Of the ark. If you break those that are in the side of the ark, you are simply breaking the 10 Commandments. This is why it says the faith of Jesus and that which is in the ark, they are inseparable. Brethren, let's go ahead.
These laws were called judgments.
Right.
Both because they were framed in infinite wisdom and equity, and because the magistrates were to give judgment according to them.
So these are what we called what? Judgments.
Amen.
Let's hear even more about them. What were they like? PP 363 paragraph 2. He did not even then trust his precept to the memory of a people who were prone to forget his requirements. Right. But wrote them upon the tables of stone. So the tables of stones, they were seen by Ellen White inside the what? The ark. Go ahead. He would remove from Israel all possibility of mingling heathen traditions with his holy precepts. Right. Of confounding his requirements with human ordinances or customs. Right. But he did not stop with giving them the precepts of the Decalogue. So he did not stop in giving them the precepts of the what? Decalogue. The 10 commandments that are inside the ark. What did he do? The people had shown themselves so easily led astray that he would leave no door of temptation unguarded. Moses was commanded to write, as God should bid him, judgments and laws, giving minute instruction as to what was required. So God gave what was in the ark, and then he saw that people were not ready, and he then gave minute instructions that Moses were to write, which were called what? Judgments. Which we have seen that the judgments and the statutes and the testimonies, they are not inside the ark, but they are on the side of the ark. But they are inseparable from the 10 Commandments. Why? Why are they inseparable? These directions relating to the duty of the people to God, to one another, and to the stranger, were only the principle of the 10 Commandments amplified, and given in a specific manner that none need to err. So do you see, brethren, the 10 Commandments are inseparable from the statutes and from the judgments and from the testimonies. Why? Because these are the 10 Commandments amplified and simplified. So when you reject this, You have rejected the 10 This is why I don't know. I say, pioneers. No. That's not the way to go. That's not the third angel's message. People thought the third message was limited in the laws inside the what? The ark. She's saying, no. That's not the third angel's message. It is inseparable with these other laws, and they are binding and as fresh as they would have been even today. So, what were these laws? Which are outside, which were given, which are 10 commandments amplified, right? Can you go down that? If Abraham,
and if
this is SR 148, paragraph 3.
And if the descendants of Abraham had kept the covenant, of which circumcision was a token or pledge,
right?
They would never have gone into the idolatry or been suffered to go down in Egypt. And there would have been no necessity of God's proclaiming his law from Sinai and engraving it upon these tables of stone and guarding it by definite directions
in the statutes and judgments of Moses. So you can see that when God gave the commandments, he guarded it by the statutes and judgments. And because we have known these statutes and judgments, what were they? Moses wrote these statutes and judgments.
Moses wrote these statutes and judgments from the mouth. Moses wrote these judgments and statutes from the mouth of God while he was with him in the mount.
Right.
If the people of God had obeyed the principles of the 10 Commandments, there would have been no need of the specific directions given to Moses,
right,
which he wrote in a book, relative to their duty to God and to one another.
Right. The
definite directions which the Lord gave to Moses in regard to the duty of his people to one another and to the stranger are the principles of the 10 Commandments simplified and given in a definite manner,
right,
and they need not err.
Right. I repeat that the directions which the Lord gave to Moses in regard to the duty of people to one another. So these statutes, they have parted from people to one another, which are the judgments. And to the stranger are the principles of the 10 Commandments amplified and given in a manner that none need what? To err. So very clear, brethren, as you can have it. Now, what did God give as a barrier or as something to guard the Sabbath? Are we together, brethren? Yes. Because we are saying we have the 10 Commandments. Yes, all these 10 Commandments. But we saw in 1844, God highlighted the 10 Commandments, the Sabbath. But what did he give, which is on the side of the ark, to highlight the Sabbath? Which is, we call it a barrier for the Sabbath, which God wrote in 1860, 1856 and said in June 19, 1856. June 19.
We have seen no arm raised by the appointment of God,
right, to
strike down those divine barriers which were given to guard the Sabbath.
Do you see that? There is no arm of God to strike down the barriers which we have talked about, which were given to guard the what? The sacredness of the Sabbath. So there is a Sabbath inside the ark, the 7-day Sabbath. But there is the Sabbath outside the ark, which are the barriers, which are an amplification of the 10 Commandments, of the Sabbath commandment. And what are those? Now, go ahead.
And thus,
all right, maybe so that you can finish that quote on your own. But let's run quickly to find out in PP, page 311, what barriers did God put around the law of the Sabbath? Again, the people
were reminded of the sacred obligation of the Sabbath.
Right.
Yearly feasts were appointed, at which all the men of the nation were to assemble before the Lord, bringing to him their offerings of gratitude and the first fruits of his bounties.
Right.
The object of all these regulations was stated. They proceeded from no exercise of mere arbitrary sovereignty, or were given for the good of Israel.
Right. So we see that what did God give to guard the Sabbath? He gave what? The yearly feast. If you read the yearly feast attempt, the statutes. For example, I gave these two verses, Psalms 81, verse 3 and 4. Can you take it for us? Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Israel and the law of the God of what? Jacob. So you can see that new moon being a feast is a statute, and we are told that these statutes are on the side of the of the ark, and we are told in that other verse that the yearly feast were given to guard the Sabbath. Right? So we also have this one, Leviticus 23, verse 34 and 41, which says, 15 12, the 7th month being the Feast of Tabernacles. And also it says, and you shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in a year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations, and you shall celebrate it in the 7th month. So you can see that the Sabbath inside the ark is the 7th-day Sabbath. But the Sabbath that is in the most holy place on the side of the ark are yearly feast. But before God, Sabbath and the yearly feast are inseparable. They are one thing, because the 7th-day Sabbath is amplified and given in a specific manner that none need to err by the yearly feast. This is why when you find the year Sabbath begins in Leviticus 23 as a feast, then you have the yearly feast being given. Why? Because the yearly feast are expanding the 7th-day Sabbath. You cannot keep the 7th-day Sabbath unless you keep the statutes, the yearly feast. And this is even we find in Deuteronomy, after altering the judgments. In Exodus chapter 23, Moses then altered the statutes of the yearly feast, and says, after saying, you shall not work on the Sabbath day, this is Exodus 23 verse 12 to 15. What does he say? Do you see it?
Exodus 23.
Verse 12 to 15. He says, 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox, thine ass may rest, and thy son or handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. In all these things I have said unto you, be circumspect. He's talking about the Sabbath. Then afterwards says, 3 times in a year thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the Lord. So you see, wherever the Sabbath is spoken, what comes next? The yearly feast. For these are inseparable. This is why you see Ezekiel 46 talks of the new moon. Isaiah 66 verse 22 talks of the new moon being kept in the new heavens and earth, and the Sabbath. The yearly feast and this, they are inseparable. They go hand in hand. This is why Shellen Watt was saying, if you had understood the third angel's message, you will also understand the faith of Jesus Christ, which is contained on the law on the side of the what? Of the ark. So we could say more about this lesson, brethren, many things, how it was rejected in 1988, how the 2 additional angels, which you are saying, maybe let's just hear about the 2 additional angels. Because the 2 additional angels, they are the ones who can tell us more about what is taking place where? In the sanctuary. Ellen White saw inside the ark. But these ones, they come where? Inside the what? The temple, inside the sanctuary, and they give us pertaining the laws that are on the sides of the ark. Let's just hear that. That's Revelation chapter 14, verse 15 to 17. You see that one?
Yes.
Yes. And another angel, after the third angel, we have this other angel.
And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice.
Do you see that, brethren? The third angel's message does not come out of the temple. It sees the temple away, but this one comes inside. The angel that follows the third comes inside the temple. Meaning this angel knows exactly what is there, and they make it very clear what is there. There are 10 commandments and the laws that are inseparable to the 10 commandments, which are the yearly feast, the statutes, and the judgments, and the testimonies. This is why God is saying you cannot make it even to the kingdom when you neglect a prophet. There must be a prophet, because the Sabbath and the prophets are inseparable. Let's move on.
And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud,
right?
Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe.
Right?
And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped.
Right? So, this is what happened. That's the fourth angel. How about the fifth angel? And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over the fire. So this other angel comes also from the altar in heaven. You can see how close these angels are when you compare them to the 3 angels' messages, or to the 3rd angel's message. You see them flying in the midst of heaven. But these ones are coming right inside the temple. Why? Because inside the temple, on the side of the Ark of the Covenant, there is this law which is binding as it should be even today. So this is why, in conclusion, God says to us in 2 TG 37, paragraph 20, page 25. Do you see that one? 2 TG 37.
Okay, paragraph 25. Behold.
Yes, behold. This is what God then says to us now.
Behold, upon the mountains the feet of him that bringeth good tidings.
So the mountains, we know they represent the church. This is an Advent church which is now there. Upon these Advent churches, there is now the addition of these angels that are coming on. Quiet.
That publisheth peace. O Judah,
right.
Keep thy solemn feast. Perform thy vows. For the wicked shall no more pass through thee.
Right.
He is utterly cut off. Here the prophetic word of God plainly declares by both Isaiah and Nahum, the prophet,
right.
that when we see these good tidings published,
right.
by him whose feet are seen upon the mountains.
Now when we hear about this message of the law on the side of the ark, of the Sabbath on the side of the ark, which are yearly feast, and the Sabbath in the ark, which is the 7-day Sabbath, and the testimonies which need to be kept, which were never nailed at the cross, as even Illinois testified to the pioneers, then what does it mean?
It is to be a sign.
Right, that's a sign. That the wicked,
the violators.
Who are these wicked? The wicked are violators of the laws of Moses. Which are the laws of Moses? We have seen the commandments inside the ark. We have seen on the side there we have the testimonies, the judgments, and the statutes. The violators of these laws are soon
to be cut off from among God's people.
So God is clear and says to us, if you know these things, happy are you if you what? If you do them. So may God help me and you, brethren, to be able to keep the Sabbath inside the ark, which is the 7-day Sabbath, and the Sabbath amplified, which is on the side of the ark, which are the yearly feast. As we keep this, then we have the whole tenor of the law of God. We have a clearer understanding of what it means to say the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. For the faith of Jesus is not found in the ark, but on the side of the ark. In these laws which you have indicated on the side of the ark. When you want more of this lesson, you can always get it. There is much of the things that we have skipped to this lesson because of time. So may God bless you and make us to keep his law so that we are not cut off as violators of the laws of Moses as the day is upon us. May God bless the reading of his word.
BSN TV, the channel which provides meat in due season.